What is going on today, boys? Welcome back to the Muzzle Bro channel. And today we're talking about a very interesting topic, kind of in the world of handguns. So today we're going to be discussing some of the advantages and disadvantages of different types of compensation additions that you can add to your handguns. We're going to be comparing ports with integrated compensators and with threaded barrels where you could actually add a compensator. So each different category is kind of going to have their own little positives and negatives, but we're going to go ahead and start off with the ports. So this is my custom Springfield Prodigy that I actually sent to DSC Gunworks to get these real beautiful V8 ports. As you can see, these ports go through both the slide and the barrel, and these really do help to mitigate that muzzle flip when we're shooting this weapon. Obviously, these ports are an aftermarket service. The Springfield Prodigy does not come with any ports, so I did have to send this off to the company to have these ports done. DSC Gunworks charged me about $300 for the porting and the spot Cerakote, and I think they did a phenomenal job. I absolutely love the ports on this weapon. Being a 2011, I kind of built this guy for speed, and these V8 ports absolutely help to mitigate that muzzle recoil. Now, let's talk about some potential concerns with an aftermarket porting service. The biggest one that comes to mind is reliability. Now, I'm very lucky that with this weapon system, after the ports, I did not experience any reliability issues. I've had no significant jams, I've had no malfunctions, and I haven't had to change any sort of recoil springs or internals to keep this weapon functioning flawlessly, which I was incredibly thankful for. Now, personally, I don't really care about this, but it is kind of something to note. When you port the barrels like this, you actually can reduce some of the velocity of the round. Given that this is a 4.2-inch barrel and now we have a little bit less velocity because of the ports, is that a super big deal to me? No, it's absolutely not. But I just kind of want to give you all the information. So something to think about if velocity of your round is really important to you. One of the big positives of these ports is that they're not adding any additional length to the weapon. I do carry this Prodigy every once in a while, so it's nice that I didn't have to add on like a threaded barrel and another inch or two of a compensator like on this weapon. These ports look real beautiful. They absolutely help with muzzle flip, and they don't increase the length of the weapon by having to add a threaded barrel and an additional compensator. And although I was lucky and didn't have any reliability issues, that is still a concern, along with decreased velocity from the weapon. Moving on to our next category of threaded barrels and added on compensators. So here I have the P226 Zev with a Armory Craft comp. And then over here, I just have a custom Glock 17 with the Griffin Armament threaded barrel and a Griffin Armament carry comp. As you can see with both these weapons, there is an additional length of the slide added on when we have that threaded barrel and added comp. Obviously, this one is a little bit more big and ridiculous than this one, but it also is more effective. With everything in life and in firearms, there are going to be trade-offs. I could, of course, run this with a normal barrel, and I have a little bit of a shorter slide and smaller weapon. But for me, this is kind of like a race gun handgun that I tried to pimp out so I can keep it as flat as possible and shooting as fast as possible. So on this build, I don't really care about the added weight or the added length of this compensator. Now, I will say for this compensator specifically, because of the size of it, it did actually reduce the reliability of this weapon system quite a bit. I really had to start screwing with recoil springs to get this to cycle flawlessly. And to be honest, I'm still kind of messing with it. It really kind of depends on what ammo I run and what recoil spring weight I'm using to make sure I get this weapon reliable. So again, when we're adding some aftermarket stuff to the pistol, it looks cool, it functions very well, but does it kind of decrease reliability? If you don't know what you're doing, sometimes it can. With the Griffin Armament carry comp, I was actually pretty impressed with this little guy. It doesn't really add a ton of weight or length, especially when we compare it to something like a thread protector. It's only a little bit bigger and it's a smaller comp. I mean, it is their carry comp, but it actually does substantially reduce some of that felt muzzle flip and perceived recoil, despite its small size. This is actually a fairly cheap compensator as well. I think I got the threaded barrel with the comp for maybe 120 bucks or so, so I thought that was a pretty good deal. And unlike our big ridiculous comp over here on the SIG, the Griffin Armament carry comp did not induce any sort of significant reliability issues, which is cool. Another super awesome benefit of a threaded barrel and aftermarket added comp is the ability to actually take these comps on and off. And why would we want to do that? Well, we could add something like a suppressor to either of these weapons without actually having to modify much at all. All I would do is unscrew one of these comps, thread my suppressor on, and we could shoot suppressed, which is kind of a nice function. When we have something like a ported weapon or a weapon that kind of comes comped from the factory, these really can't be suppressed. And again, if suppression is not incredibly important to you, these are both great weapons. But with our threaded barrels and additional comps, we can always take those comps off and then have additional muzzle device options. So that kind of brings us to our last category. Here, which is kind of going to be an integrated compensator from the factory on our SIG P365 Legion. Now, I don't know how super nerd you want me to get today. I know this is actually not a true compensator based on the definition because the barrel isn't comped, it's just the slide. But I don't really care about getting too much into the weeds. This is, in my opinion, a compensated pistol from the factory. And there are absolutely some benefits to that. I actually really love this weapon. I was not a super huge SIG fan until I got this, and that kind of leaded me to get the P226 Zev. but this weapon shoots incredibly flat and incredibly smooth. To be incredibly honest, I think it shoots better than the full-size Glock 17. And a lot of that is due to these integrated comps on the slide of this weapon. Now, I think one of the biggest benefits of getting a weapon comped from the factory is going to be the reliability. Obviously, they put this weapon through its paces, and the addition of the comp is not going to induce any sort of significant malfunctions or reliability issues, because they would have hopefully found that out during testing. And in my experience with this weapon, this has been 100% reliable. This is actually kind of my go-to carry gun, and I absolutely do trust this weapon with my life. A big part of that is because that comp is kind of standard from the factory, so I know it's going to work. Now, kind of like I mentioned earlier, obviously on this weapon system, because of that integrated comp, I can't really do like a threaded barrel and suppressor, but hey, this is my carry gun. I don't really want to suppress it anyways, so for me, this was kind of a no-brainer for a carry weapon. So I think absolutely all of these are phenomenal options if we want to do some additions to our handguns, reduce some muzzle flip, shoot a little bit faster, and have a little bit more fun. There's definitely positives and negatives to which setup and system you go to, but they're all very purpose-driven. I'm not really going to want a big, ridiculous compensator and additional length on my carry gun, and I'm not going to want a suppressor on my carry gun either, so I don't really care about the threaded barrel. But something like this, that's fun range toy, I want the ridiculous comp. I want to be able to suppress it. So in my personal opinion, I think all of these options are truly phenomenal. I love my V8 ports, I love my ridiculous comps, I love my small comps, and I love my comps from the factory in the slide. They all help mitigate recoil, and they're all a ton of fun to shoot. Before porting or buying a comp or buying a new slide, definitely think about the purpose behind that weapon system and help that guide your decision. Alrighty boys, let me know down in the comments kind of what's your favorite setup to reduce this muzzle flip and recoil. Ports, added comps, or comps from the factory. I think it's a really interesting debate. I appreciate you guys tuning into the channel today. I hope you enjoyed my jackass opinions, and please hit me with subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Thanks boys.